Another thing you can easily make using the TIBCO Designer tool in OpenSpirit Connect is your own custom web services. You can make web services that expose data from any data store that OpenSpirit connects to, or any other database or system that the TIBCO Enterprise Service Bus can connect to. Let's show making a very simple web service. So let's start off our Designer tool, and we'll create a new process. But in this case, we're going to make a process that will be a web service. So let's make a new process definition. We'll call this simple web service. We double click on that and we see it's an empty process definition. As it's a web service, we want to start with a web request, and then it's going to produce a web response. So we go to our HTTP palette in the Designer, and we'll start with a HTTP receiver, and we want to construct a response. And we want to construct the response from querying some data store. In this case, let's query an OpenWorks project. So we'll go back to the OpenSpirit palette and use one of the OpenSpirit activities. In this case, we use the query activity to read some data. So now we've dragged our activities in here. Let's wire them together and then configure them. This will be a very simple web service. We're going to start off with our HTTP receiver. Tell it we want that to be listening on port 777. And we want to then go to OpenSpirit query activity, and let's give it a name that indicates what we're going to do. We're going to query wells. And we want to produce a formatted result. We can return different types of data to the web browser. Since we want to display this, let's make it as HTML. We'll make an HTML table, and we'll select the data source at the design time here. We're going to connect to an OpenWorks project. So now let's go ahead and save this, and we'll construct our query. Let's query from our wellbore table, and again we could either use the OpenWorks native model, in which case there's about 1,200 to 1,800 different entities available, all the different entities inside of OpenWorks, or we'll use the OpenSpirit common model in this case. And let's get a few attributes we'll display. We want some of the well header and wellbore information. So let's get the elevation, the KB elevation, let's get the field, let's get the identifier of the wellbore, we'll get its name, let's get its total depth, and we'll join to its parent well. And you notice we're actually constructing the SQL query without having to know anything about SQL. We just have to know what the data model means. So we'll go ahead and add some attributes from the parent well, and we want to get let's get the location, and let's also get the operator of the well. So now let's change the ordering of these. I want to put the well identifier first, and then the name of it, and then I want to get the operator, and then elevation, field, total depth, location. That looks good. And let's change the display names we use here. We'll call that UWI. We'll call this KB, and we'll call this TD. Just give it some nicer display names. We say OK. So now we have defined our query. This is the query that we're going to issue. And now let's go to our HTTP response. We have to tell it it's a response for that initial request, and we have to map also the input. What are we going to return on the web page? We want to get the ASCII content from the output of our well query. So we find that formatted result, and we chose it to be an HTML table, so it should come out to something that looks reasonably well. And that now fully defines our web service. So now we've completed our web service. We've defined our web service, which will go off and query wells and return the information we requested. Let's go ahead and test it inside of our design tool. We could deploy this to run inside of a server elsewhere in our network, but in this case we're going to test it with our designer. So let's go ahead and start up the tester, indicate we want to run this simple process, which is a web service. And in order to invoke that, we have to make a call to port 777 on our local host. And I have a little shortcut I've already provided here. It's going to call my local host. And there it did. You saw it step through there, and it returned all the wells in this database and all the different information we requested, including this location information and total depth. And we could have asked that in any coordinate system we wanted to. Again, a very simple way to make a web service, and this could have been querying any OpenSpirit-enabled data source, any database that can be connected to via JDBC. It could be aggregating data from multiple sources, combining it together into one result. It makes a very easy way to web-enable your G&G data.